Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. I forgot that Sureshwar goes to that Wednesday night program, I think. Yeah. I was hoping to see him because I had one of his containers. Anyway, not a big deal. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, give me 1 second here. Okay. On this 13th day of August, 2025, in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text 14 on page 318. Okay, one more second here. All righty. Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratjaya mam eva ye papadyante mayam etam tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya Mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Page 318, Sureshwar. 318. Okay, Chad, go ahead. Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Help him. Go ahead. Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Go ahead, Babu. You look like you know what you're doing. Want to try it? No? Okay. How about you? Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Daivi yesha gunamahi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Okay. Who's on? Vanessa, you there?
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Daivi yesha gunamahi
Daivi yesha gunamahi
mama maya duratjaya
mama maya duratjaya
mameva ye prapadyante
mameva ye papadyante
mayame tam tarantite.
mayame tang tarantite. Okay, word by words. Daivi, transcendental, he, certainly, Esha, this, Gunamayi, consisting of the three modes of material nature, Mama, my, Maya, energy, Duratjaya, very difficult to overcome, Mam, unto me, Eva, certainly, Ye, those who, Papadyante, surrender, Mayam, Etam, this illusory energy, Taranti, overcome, Te, they. Now, there's a little slight editorial revision in this translation. You see where it says, second line, is difficult to overcome? So we're going to put in very difficult to overcome. Because that's what it says in the word by words, and that's what Prabhupada says in the purport. And that's what Krishna means. Okay. Translation. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence on one's own. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the Supreme Will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayam tu pakatim vidyan, mahinam tu maheshwaram. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the Supreme Magician, this Personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara, the Supreme Controller. Srimad Upanishad 4.10. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The words Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna or Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Srimad Upanishad 3.8, confirm this in the phrase Tam eva viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti padata sarvesham, Vishnu eva nasangshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Om jnana timarandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, as always, it's not helpful to see the verses in context. So, if we go back one verse, we'll read, deluded by the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. And in this verse, he says, Daiviyesha Gunamayi, this divine energy of mine. Why is it divine? Prabhupada deals with this in the purport. We learn near the beginning of this chapter about the 8 material energies that are Krishna's energies. He calls these binna prakriti. They're separated from him. So earth, water, fire, air, ether or space, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are all material, progressively more subtle as we in the list. And we can see if we look around us, well, there's a whole bunch of solid matter here. This is bhumi, you see. But there's also liquids in our own bodies. We couldn't survive without the blood and the lymph and water and all these things. And we look just a few blocks, we go to the west and we'll find a whole lot of water. And without that water, how is there going to be clouds formed? And so water is obviously essential as well. And fire, as we pointed out the other day, you take earth and you mix it with water and you add the fire, you make the bricks and you build the buildings, right? So fire is essential in so many ways, for life. Earth, water, fire, air. I mean, I always think of the pandemic when I think of air because it's all about the breathing, right? So 99% of people, how often do you think of breathing? You think of breathing when it's difficult to breathe. Otherwise, it's just automatic. But everyone suddenly was thinking, my goodness, I may go to Sprouts or Trader Joe's, but what is that person looking at the potatoes next to me going to be doing? Breathing out, and I'm sitting next to them. So I better have a mask, right? So suddenly everyone became aware of the breathing. And unfortunately, so many people died because that horrible virus was impeding the breathing. We had a devotee here died, Madhusudan, and others around the world. So all of these, we are dependent for our material life on the material energies. In other words, if we're unaware there's a whole spiritual dimension of life, we'll think, well, without all of these support, we can't live. But we can. The spirit doesn't need any of that. In the spiritual world, there's no material water, air, and fire. There may be spiritual water, and it's completely conscious. The Yamuna River is alive, and it's very happy when Krishna jumps in there and swims, and there's a whole reciprocation. That's the wonderment about the spiritual world. It's through and through spiritual. Krishna's body, it's not like ours. It's eternal, ever youthful, and it's made entirely of spiritual energy. That famous phrase, Sat Chit Ananda, that primarily applies to Krishna's form. It's eternal, Sat, Chit, full of unlimited knowledge and full of bliss. That's the Ananda. Now the wonderful thing is that we also have a Sat Chit Ananda body. But because we're minute, part and parcels of Krishna, it can be covered if we voluntarily break our connection with Krishna by trying to forget him. And as soon as we turn away from Krishna and we want to do our own thing and become the enjoyers and controllers, then we're in Maya. And we're placed in this world of Maya, this temporary world. But we don't belong here. And Krishna, being our eternal Father, what does he say beginning of the 14th chapter? Sarva yonisha konteya, murtiyak sambhavantiha, tasam brahma mahajonir, aham bija pradakpata. I am the seed-giving Father for all the living entities in the material world. So we're all his children. And we're suffering in this material world. Let's count the ways. Okay, there's the 4 basic things. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Now, none of those are really very pleasant, and everyone faces those. But even in the normal course of life, there's also the threefold miseries. Adhyatmic miseries, those are caused by your own body and mind. You don't know, the cause of it, but you have a terrific headache, or somehow you've inherited some disease, propensity for disease, and it comes. So this is your own body and mind are giving you trouble, adhyatmic. But that's not all. We have adhidaivik. We're very aware of those now because of climate change. The terrific fires that they had recently in LA area, and a few years ago, bigger fires, I think, or at least as big, a little north of there. There was one retirement town and city, called Paradise. It was completely burned. Many people died in it. It wasn't paradise after all. And the hurricanes that hit last year in Florida and North Carolina and all these things. So this is called adhidaivik, and we have always here the threat of the earthquake. You know, this is the special. Sorry to remind you of that, but when I first came here, I had lived for 6 years already in Miami, and there it's the hurricanes. You know, when the hurricane season comes, the first thing you do when you get up in the morning after you change your rounds and have breakfast is look at the weather report. Is there something coming up? Another, coming toward Miami? Well, I was there. We didn't have a major storm. But now, with climate change, these hurricanes have gotten much more violent and dangerous on average. So that you can't control that. That's under the control of higher powers, of devas. Indra, famously, this temple is named after, is commemorating the Govardhan Leela. And we see in every corner, if you look carefully, there's Krishna holding up the hill. Why does he have to hold up the hill? Because Indra got upset when Krishna stopped the sacrifice, the story. And as Indra is wont to do, he forgets himself, and you think, well, I'll punish him, I'll destroy the whole community. I mean, if he had succeeded, he would, he'd be like a big demon, right? But he couldn't succeed. So he sends these clouds to send out rain and huge blocks of ice, into Vrindavan. So what do the residents do? As soon as someone's in danger, they pray, Krishna, please save us. So he very calmly lifts the whole hill. Not on his forefinger, but on his pinky, just to show the left hand. 7 days and nights, he holds it up. Nobody sleeps, nobody eats. Everyone is just enthralled with Krishna's presence, and he's enjoying the whole thing. So, but that Adi Daivik is a big, and then there's the Adi Bhautik, which has other living entities, oftentimes other people. I remember, I like to give this example, forgive me, from the early days when I was a complete atheist and I would read all this existentialist literature. And I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre, he was famous as a poet and everything like that. And he wrote a book called No Exit. It was a very depressing book. And I remember this one line in the book, and that is, maybe the protagonist, the hero, then, hell is other people. You can imagine how miserable his life was. Hell is other people. Oy. But sometimes other people can make you suffer a lot. Those Adi Bhautik. Prabhupada gives the example, bed bugs. Maybe there's always something threatening. So these threefold miseries plus the big ones, birth, old age, disease, and death, that's what it means to be a conditioned soul, material soul. We are not these bodies. And as we all know, we like to forget it, but the body's going to end one time at a certain point. And we'll take another body. So in one sense, nobody dies. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, text 20. Najayate mriyate va kadachan nayam bhutva bhavita va nabhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam parano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Prabhupada would like to quote this verse. So he says, Najayate mriyate va. Right there he says, the soul is neither born nor dies. We're eternal. At any time. There's not a whole lot of new souls coming into being, and there won't become in the future new ones into being. We all exist eternally as eternal as Krishna. That's the third line. Aja, nitya, shashvato, yam parano. We are unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. We are not slain when the body is slain. The body is kind of slain, by old age, whatever it may be, weapons, disease, something causes it to become dysfunctional. So in one sense it's slain. They're on a battlefield, so he's trying to convince Arjuna that your beloved guru, Dronacharya, who taught him everything about fighting, that was his fighting guru, military guru, and Bhishma Dev, who served the role of a grandfather when the Pandavas suddenly lost their father. Pandu died untimely in the forest. And so he helped to see to the raising of the boys. So he was a beloved grandfather figure. And they were on the other side for circumstantial reasons. So he says, yes, they're going to die in this battle one way or another anyway. And if you fight, you may be instrumental, but they're not going to die. Bhishma especially, a great devotee, he's going to go back to Godhead. And Dronacharya, he's also, very learned and pious. He'll get a good birth. So they won't die. That will change the bodies. Now, then after he, actually before he speaks this, but in the same mood, he's saying, still, yes, it's true. that because you won't have their association anymore, this will be a very traumatic experience. That's what's so traumatic. Suddenly the person who you love you can't interact with them anymore. You see, they may be in another body, but you didn't see that body. So therefore, he says also in that second chapter, Matra sparshasta konteya shitoshna sukadukada agama pahino nityas tams tatikshvasva bharata. Tatiksha means tolerance. So matras, he gives examples. Due to the touch of the senses, to the elements, we always experience happiness or misery, you know. So matra sparsha that produces shita ushna, cold and heat, or winter and summer, and which can give sukha dukkha. So in India, you know, the shita comes first. Oh, the nice cool summer, that's happiness, right? And ushna, that's heat. Summer, oh, that's dukkha, sukha dukkha. So, but it's coming and going. You have to realize it's all temporary. Sukha dukkha agama pahino. Anityas, it's not eternal. Therefore, you have to tolerate. Understanding that, yes, there's going to be some pain. And we know that even, you know, I mean, when Prabhupada disappeared, devotees were devastated. You know, they were in despair. What are we going to do now? You know, it was very painful. But, you know, relying on the chanting and Prabhupada's instruction, you know, we tolerate and you move on because that's what Prabhupada wants us to do. So this is material life. There's ups and downs, and you know, pleasure and pain, but we need to transcend the dualities of this, become tolerant of the suffering and tolerant of the allurements to try to enjoy material happiness, because that's not going to help us. That's going to bring us to another material body. Rather, we want to undertake appropriate austerities, not extreme austerities, but appropriate austerities. Getting up early is the main one, you know, giving up animal food, that's a big austerity for some people. But the four regulative principles, what's prescribed, in order to begin to transcend or to tamp down the constant demands of the senses for sense gratification, and the desire of the mind to think about it all the time, you know. So rather we want to train the mind to think of Krishna and to learn how to take pleasure in serving Krishna and his devotees. And especially, as Krishna makes clear at the end of the book, in trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, which is the greatest gift. It is the greatest philanthropic work, because it can give people an opening and take it to their eternal welfare. It's good to feed hungry people and to educate the ignorant and all of these things. That's charity, that's good karma. It'll get you a better material birth, probably a human birth. But that's not going to solve our problems, you see. The real problem we have is birth, old age, disease, and death. And that's what everyone's problem is. And we're going along bereft of our actual blissful life and blissful consciousness that we lost many, many years ago by coming to this material world mistakenly, trying to be the enjoyers. So the whole thing is to embrace the truth and the idea that being minute part and parcels of Krishna, as spiritual beings, we have a role to play in the eternal service of the Lord. And in that service, we can experience the highest happiness. And that we can have faith in by reading the accounts of the devotees and seeing pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, how in every circumstance he was always in that blissful mood, especially when he saw that people were taking up the chanting of Hare Krishna and the process of devotional service. So it's difficult because we're so used to calculating on material levels, you know. And that's why people see us and they say, you know, because I take this walk all the time. And sometimes people will give me a good morning. You know, I try to give them a good morning. Usually by instinct, they'll also say good morning. But I can see that they think, well, this guy is weird because I'm dressed like this and I'm chanting my rounds, you know, Hare Krishna, good. But I see where the real craziness is when I go up and I pass the yard gym. Does anyone know what the yard gym is? It's come from Australia, you know. It was invented there, but they opened one up here near this temple. And you know, I'm walking at 6:35, you know, and here you got a whole gym full of young people. It seems like you have to be over 20 and under 30. I don't think there's anyone in that. And they're all streaming in there, and they're cooking, and they have loud music playing, and they have coaches in there, telling them, do it this way, do it that way. It's not just an ordinary gym, fitness center with a whole bunch of stationary bikes. That's not the way it is. So, I always think, well, I just came from the temple of God, and here's the temple for the body. They're sacrificing so much, they're paying at least $100 a month for all those coaches and all that thing, And they get, the body becomes stronger, I can enjoy much more, But that's what this world is about, is that you get committed, you forget, because you're trying to enjoy. You can't really enjoy the, material life if you're always thinking of Krishna. Because you feel, the Super Soul is watching me doing all this, and so you have to forget. Krishna allows us to forget. But Krishna consciousness is specifically remembering. It's remembering more and more. There's a beautiful verse that describes what the purpose of the whole thing is. It says, Smarta vyaksatam Vishnu. Vishnu, smartatam satatam Vishnu, vismarta vyona jatuchit. Sava vidi nishedakshur eteyor eva kinkara. So smartavyak means to remember, and satata means always. So to always remember Vishnu or Krishna, and never forget him. Vismartavyo na jatuchit. Sava vidi nishedakshur. All of the rules and regulations. Now there's a difference between a rule and a regulation. A rule is the don'ts, and the regulation is the do's. In Bhagavad Gita. So there's a bunch of do's and don'ts for any discipline. So all of the do's and don'ts of Krishna consciousness you find in Bhagavad Gita and so many other books are all servants of these two principles. Whatever we're doing, getting up early, chanting Hare Krishna, we're trying to increase our remembrance of Krishna. And we're avoiding nonsense talk, you see, and all of the diversions because they'll help us forget Krishna. So we don't want to do that. So it all boils down to more and more increasing our remembrance of Krishna. And along with the remembrance comes the different kinds of services we do. Now, remembering Krishna is a service. Hearing about him is a service. You're doing it right now. In my own, imperfect way, I'm trying to glorify Krishna. We're meditating on Bhagavad Gita. This is the most important service because it's the foundation of all the others. That's why in the list of 9 services that Prahlad Maharaj gives, when he's preaching to his father fearlessly, his father's trying to make him into a nice little demon and train him up, and all he's doing is preaching Krishna consciousness to his father and to his friends. He's subverting the whole kingdom. So finally, his father tries to kill him, and he gets killed by Nishingadev. Did you see the movie? No, I heard about it. You saw it? I thought it was good. Madana Gopal, who was here, remember him? He wrote a very eloquent review of that movie. There's a movie made of Prahlad and Nishingadev called, Narasingha Mahavatar. Narasingha, right? Oh, Mahavatar, Narasingha. Yeah, it's a animated. But it seems like AI because the figures look very realistic, isn't it? No. You saw the English one? I heard it was in Hindi with yeah, the one playing now I think is Hindi with, yeah. But this Madana Gopal, he was so enthralled with that movie. He Madana Gopal, he's so eloquent, very well spoken, and he wrote this beautiful review, just glorifying this movie as, a spiritual experience. Because it's very much in tune with the Bhagavatam. I think it's made by devotees, obviously, So that's, and if it is a success, it's already a success, there'll be more. You can imagine. It's going to change everything. So, anyway, back to our meditating here on the Gita. So, this verse is very important in the whole Gita. It's saying this Daivi Yesha Gunamayi, this world which is composed of the 3 modes of nature and the activities, it is all divine because it's connected to Krishna. Even the earth, water, fire, ether, which are material energies, but in a larger sense they're divine because they're Krishna's energies. But we make the distinction with the spiritual energies, which is the conscious energy, living entity, and the material energies. But still, in one sense, they're all divine. And this whole chapter, there's a whole section that we just passed where it starts with this phrase, Rasoham Apsakonteya Pramasmi Shasishuriva. It's a famous verse. I am the taste of water, O Arjun. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the fragrance of the earth. I am the ability in man. I am pranavali. Krishna's identifying with all these things that we're very familiar with. Who doesn't drink water during the day? Who doesn't see the light of the sun or the moon somehow, Even the electric light is ultimately coming from the sun. Where's the energy coming, from the... So when you see the light or you taste the water, you can remember Krishna. The very tongue that we're using, that's all part of our body, created by Krishna. The water is created by Krishna. Our ability to taste, that's his energy. So everything we see and experience should remind us of Krishna. That's the vision of the pure devotee. He doesn't just see a tree, he sees Krishna because he sees Krishna's energy and everything, and the soul, like that. So that seeing through the eye of Shastra, and that this chapter, and the fragrances, I am the fragrance of the earth, so he goes through all the senses, But then he's describing that all of this is gunamahi, composed of the modes of nature, like consisting of the modes of material nature, gundasbe, is mama maya duratya, is my energy, and very difficult to overcome, this material energy. Because it's so familiar to us, and this is how we think of ourselves in relation to the material energy. But one who surrenders unto me can cross beyond it, and easily. Prabhupada says in the purport, easily. Very difficult to cross, impossible on your own. But if you surrender to Krishna, you can easily cross beyond it. And the evidence is, even in our own experience, those who have been practicing Krishna consciousness for some time seriously, you can experience, it's a general experience, you become less and less attached to things that you used to be very much attached to. Eating all sorts of things, some drug you were attached to. It's the best way to really kick the habit of, say, cigarettes or alcohol or things like that. Because you get the higher taste. The point is, right in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, he says, Vishayavani vartante nidahara siddhina rasavadra masabhasya padam drishva nivartate. It's very instructive. So I always point out how the word vishaya, which means sense gratification, the object of the senses, what's the word for poison? Visha. Is it not an accident that the word visha and vishaya are so close? Sense gratification is a kind of poison. In other words, poisons your spiritual life and you become attached to material things, you come back again. The worst, So vishayavani vartante niradehina. Now if you stop consuming them, if you make a vow, I'm not going to take a drink, today or tomorrow, then gradually, they'll turn away from you, you see. You'll be able to do it. You get the strength. But the taste is still there in the heart, you see. The memory of it. That's why it's so difficult. You may, go to AA. I point out, where you have others who are trying to quit, and you actually call upon a higher power. They try to be ecumenical, so they don't call whether it's Jesus or anyone, just God basically. And with that strength, you're able to stay sober for a certain amount of time. And if you do for a few weeks, they give you a little medallion. My name is Joe Smith, and I'm an alcoholic, but I've been clean for 2 weeks. See, I've got the medallion, so I'm working on it, But really, the deep-seated desire is still there because you don't. But if you get a higher spiritual taste, then you can become fixed in the renunciation. And this comes up in the famous Jamil story, about the power of the holy name. This comes up again and again in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance of chanting the holy name. So it's called, what is it? Manye Kunjata Shauchavat. So someone is doing sinful activities, but he reads about how that's such a danger, and so with great strength he gives up his sinful activities, and he doesn't engage in them. But it's like an elephant who bathes. So he bathes, he cleans himself off, he goes into the river or lake, comes out, and he even has a built-in shower, right, he can use. So he gets a nice bath, but he comes out, and how's he going to dry off? There's no gumshoe big enough, towel, right? So he rolls around in the dust. He gets dirty again. So you clean, but then you get dirty again. And Prabhupada compares the Christians, they confess, But then they do it again, and then they confess, so. No, you got it. So Krishna consciousness, this verse says, if you, param drishtva nivartate. If drishtva means to see, or it can mean in general, directly perceive. The param, the transcendence, Krishna. If you get the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, you can remain fixed in renunciation. You actually don't want to do it anymore. There's no taste, and that becomes easy to give it up. The hard part is, gritting your teeth and, I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it. I know it's bad for me, like that. So if you don't get past that, eventually you come into a situation where you fall again. And that's why it's, the alcoholics, they keep falling off the wagon, and people. So this is a very important, because in one sense we're all addicts. We're addicted to sense gratifications, this time immemorial. Maybe different kinds, in different forms of body. Then we, eat this and that. But the addiction, the strong attachment, is the bond. It's called the hridaya granthi, the knots in the heart that keep us bound to birth and death. So those knots need to be cut. And there's a beautiful verse, second chapter, first canto, very near the beginning of the book. It's all about getting the taste for hearing about Krishna. And that is the sword, chindandi, by which you can cut these knots. Vidyate hridaya grantis, chidyante sarva samshaya, chiyante chastikarmani, drishta evatmanishvare. The soul, by hearing about Krishna nicely, Krishna in the heart, he favors that person, and he loosens the bonds to the material energy. And we chant one verse before every Bhagavatam class, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavad yukta mashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So the process, and when you cultivate the taste for hearing, which is what we're trying to do now, we're hearing Bhagavad Gita, we chant Hare Krishna. Then in that process, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu, the inauspicious things in your heart become cleansed away. Not completely, but to a large extent. Prayeshu. Nityam Bhagavata say, by always serving the Lord, by hearing about Him, by hearing from the spiritual master, like that. Nityam Bhagavata say, Bhagavat means the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavat, the person Bhagavat. Say, Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. One's devotion becomes fixed to Uttama Shloka. It's a beautiful name for Krishna, meaning He was glorified in the most beautiful songs and poems. So you become fixed, and then you go on, and then the last verse says, when you really become mature, this is the result. Vidyate hridaya grantis. All of those knots in the heart are cut. Vidyate hridaya grantis. Chidyantes, all your doubts are destroyed. Because in the first beginning, it says, is this really real? All of these amazing stories? Is there really a God out there? You have full of doubts. Then you chant a little while, there's something going on. But really, to be free of doubts is an advanced platform. But here, that your doubts are destroyed because you're getting direct experience. Chiyante chasti karmani, all your karma, your latent karma, good and bad karma, which keeps bringing you back, that's all neutralized. And then, drishta evatmanishvare. Now this can mean different things. Prabhupada took it to mean that one sees oneself and one's master. One sees God within oneself. He's always there. And you see your own form in your original spiritual form that we have in relation to Krishna. So this is a whole little complete lesson in the very second chapter of the whole Bhagavatam. And we made it into a book, because Prabhupada would lecture on these verses a lot. There were about 17 of them, 16, 17. So we took those lectures and we took excerpts from them, appended them to the purports, and we made a book called Dharma, The Way of Transcendence. So that's what this is all about. The way of transcendence is to surrender to Krishna, and it's very difficult to cross over, duratya. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. So this is a very important verse and concept. And then he goes, those who don't surrender unto me, that's the next verse, then they fall into certain categories that we don't want to be part of. Okay, if there's no discussion or questions, we'll go on. Text 15. Namam dushkritano mudha papadyante nararamaha Mayaya parita jnana asudam bhavamashataha. Okay, these are people who don't surrender. They fall into 4 classes. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Purport: it is said in the Bhagavad Gita that simply by surrendering oneself unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality, Krishna, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. At this point, a question arises. How is it that educated philosophers, scientists, businessmen, administrators, and all the leaders of ordinary men do not surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the all-powerful personality of Godhead? Mukti, or liberation from the laws of material nature, is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways, and with great plans and perseverance for a great many years and births. But if that liberation is possible by simply surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why don't these intelligent and hard-working leaders adopt this simple method? Answer: the Gita answers this question very frankly. Those really learned leaders of society like Brahma, Shiva, Kapila, the Kumaras, Manu, Vyas, Devala, Asita, Janaka, Prahlad, Bali, and later on Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Sri Chaitanya, and many others, who are faithful philosophers, politicians, educators, scientists, etc., do surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Person, the all-powerful authority. Those who are not actually philosophers, scientists, educators, administrators, etc., but who pose themselves as such for material gain, do not accept the plan or path of the Supreme Lord. They have no idea of God. They simply manufacture their own worldly plans and consequently complicate the problems of material existence in their vain attempts to solve them. Because material energy or nature is so powerful, it can resist the unauthorized plans of the atheists and baffle the knowledge of the, quote, planning commissions. The atheistic plan makers are described herein by the word duskritina, or miscreants. So there's 4 different categories. He's going to explain each of them. Duskritina. Kriti means one who has performed meritorious work. The atheist plan maker is sometimes very intelligent and meritorious also, because any gigantic plan, good or bad, must take intelligence to execute. But because the atheist brain is improperly utilized in opposing the plan of the Supreme Lord, the atheistic plan maker is called duskriti, which indicates that his intelligence and efforts are misdirected. In the Gita, it is clearly mentioned that material energy works fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It has no independent authority. It works as the shadow moves in accordance with the movements of the object. But still, material energy is very powerful, and the atheist, due to his godless temperament, cannot know how it works, nor can he know the plan of the Supreme Lord. Under illusion and the modes of passion and ignorance, all his plans are baffled, as in the case of Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, whose plans were smashed to dust, although they were both materially learned as scientists, philosophers, administrators, and educators. These duskritinas, or miscreants, are of 4 different patterns as outlined below. 1, the mudhas, are those who are grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the Supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass, the jackass or donkey. This humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under the fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. The ass thinks poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs others. This is the position of the foolish, fruitive worker who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know that karma, or action, is meant for yajna, or sacrifice. Most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being. To such mudhas, material gains, which are destructible, are life's all in all. despite the fact that the mudas enjoy only a very small fraction of the fruit of labor. Sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for fruit of gain, and although they may have ulcers or indigestion, they are satisfied with practically no food. They are simply absorbed in working hard day and night for the benefit of illusory masters. Ignorant of their real master, the foolish workers waste their valuable time serving mammon. That's more or less money. Unfortunately, they never surrender to the Supreme Master of all masters, nor do they take time to hear of him from the proper sources. The swine who eat the night soil do not care to accept sweetmeats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear of the sense-enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. 2. So that was all the mudas. Those are the mudas, and now the Duskriti. Another class of Duskriti, or miscreants, so these are all 4 different kinds of Duskriti, is called the Naradama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adama means the lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradamas. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relationship with him. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relationship with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all-powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as an Naradama. We get information from revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is eternally related with God. But after his deliverance, or after he's delivered as a baby, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusory energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, as enjoined in the Manusmriti, which is the guide to religious principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnashram. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world, and therefore 99.9% of the population is Naradama. When the whole population becomes Naradama, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of physical nature. According to the standard of the Gita, a learned man is he who sees on equal terms the learned Brahman, the dog, the cow, the elephant, and the dog-eater. This is the vision of a true devotee. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead as Divine Master, delivered a typical Naradamas, the brothers Jagai and Madhai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So the Naradama, who is condemned by the personality of Godhead, can again revive his spiritual consciousness only by the mercy of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in propagating the Bhagavad Dharma, or activities of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is the Bhagavad Gita. The lowest amongst human beings can be delivered by this submissive hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages, and what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. The Naradamas, or the lowest of mankind, willfully neglect the prime duty of the human being. 3. The next class of Duskriti is called Maya Parita Jnana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Maya Paritita Jnana at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. The Supersoul in every entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and everyone is advised to surrender unto his lotus feet. Despite all these clear statements, the Maya Paritita Jnana deride the personality of the Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. They do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal and transcendental feature of the Supreme Lord. All the unauthorized interpretations of the Gita by the class of Maya Paritita Jnana outside the purview of the Parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual understanding. The deluded interpreters do not surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, nor do they teach others to follow this principle. All right, we just have enough time to finish this purport. 4. The last class of Duskriti is called Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, or those of demonic principles. This class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend to the material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reasons as to why not. There are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in the Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons, whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead, cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Shri Yamunacharya Alabandharu of South India said, "O my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principles, despite your uncommon qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in the godly qualities." Close quote. Therefore, 1. Grossly foolish persons, 2. The lowest of mankind, 3. The deluded speculators, and 4. The professed atheists, as above mentioned, never surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice. So, I'm glad that we've escaped those classifications. I don't think anyone here belongs there. So now it's time to get ready for the Artik. Thank you for your attention. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. We'll resume with text 16 on Monday.